everyone. Thank you for joining SBC Leaders Podcast and what will be our final episode of 2021. I'm Kehn, Global Relationship Director for SBC, and I am joined today by Seiler, who's the Associate Vice President of Investor Relations and Development at Rush Street Interactive. Lauren is a name that either you know or you're about to know. We've gotten a chance to get to know each other over the last few months and all the conferences that we've been to. So it is truly my pleasure to welcome Lauren to the show. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Kelly. It's really great to be here. I really appreciate you having me.
Right. I'm excited for this chat. I first want to set the stage, though. Rush Street Interactive is a member of SBC Leaders. SBC Leaders includes the top operators around the world and the operator associations that they belong to. So tell me what's happening at Rush Street these days.
We've certainly been busy, that's for sure. There's no lack of excitement out there. There's no lack of opportunity out there. There's no lack of growth out there. It's really been a busy time for us. I mean, not just for us, for the entire industry. So, I mean, I wear a couple of hats for Rush Street, so I don't just do one job or another. And I think that's, endemic to any kind of new, exciting, almost feels like a startup kind of company. Everybody's working super hard, doing all kinds of different things. And it really gives you the opportunity to focus on things that you're excited about, not just necessarily the role that you're primarily in from a day to day.
We were in New York a couple weeks ago. And I think exciting is the right word, right? Everybody was excited. The mood was exciting. What are you excited about these days? What's happening?
I think really it's the explosive growth for us, for the industry, for everybody. I'm newer to the organization, so to RSI's credit, they've always fostered this incredible culture of thought leadership and communication, and embedded in that is an empowerment for all the team members to explore different opportunities and where they think they could add value to the organization. And we've been seeing great ideas coming from all over the place on top of what's just happening in the industry. So I've been super busy just looking at everything that crosses our plate and encouraging folks internally to make a case when they see something that's really exciting for them. I think that's really what drives the heartbeat of RSI, right? People being excited about what they're doing, being excited about the organization, about the industry, about the growth, about the changes. So, I think it's really all of the opportunity that's out there that's really exciting for me. And then, kind of wearing two hats, right? I work on the development side of things. I also work on the investor relations side of things. From an IR perspective, I think it's really exciting that I can keep educating investors on the iGaming and the OSB ecosystem, right? So I was kind of raised on the land-based side of the business. So having that knowledge of the global gaming ecosystem, its history, having watched the progression of how we got to where we are today, and from an interactive perspective, a legislative perspective, it's been really helpful in bridging that knowledge gap between land-based gaming investors and the online gaming world. And it brings in an understanding of player behavior and psychology that makes evaluating all of these growth opportunities in the industry right now super, super exciting. And just to have a finger on the pulse for all of these different things within the organization and within the industry is really exciting for me.
That is really, really exciting. And all of the states that are coming along, new jurisdictions, new countries, perhaps?
Yeah, we're working on all of it. There's no lack of energy on the development team. It's constant work just to make sure you're in the markets that you want to be in the markets of consequence, and in the jurisdictions and countries of consequence, and really helping to, be a creator as all of this comes through from a legislative perspective, how things are going to look, how things are going to play out state by state.
I have to check the news every day, basically, just to see who's getting acquired, what mergers are happening, what states are going live, which I didn't have to do 2 years ago, it felt like, and now it's explosive. So you talked a little bit about what you're doing and with Rush Street and how you're bringing your land-based experience to the table. So you and I have talked a few times, and you've had a pretty interesting career, and I think you're just getting started. I can't see sort of the waves that you make. I want to know a little bit about how you got to the role you are now, that you're in now. And typically from, you and I have talked about how easy, hard, how different it is to be a woman in the industry and how we need to support. So if you can sort of paint it, give me the lens of, as a woman in the industry, how you got to where you are now.
it's kind of interesting. I know we've kind of kicked around our different backgrounds and how we got to where we are. And I've got to tell you, it's definitely been an interesting role. If you would have told me 20 years ago that I was going to be sitting in this seat, I don't know that I necessarily would have believed you, right? So yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me, definitely not lacking its fair share of twists and turns and setbacks and small victories and small heartaches along the way. But I think really what it ultimately came down to and how I got here was a pretty interesting confluence of events. So I went to the equivalent of the fire academy, which was called Essentials back then when I was 16, and became a firefighter, and I loved every aspect of it. And I spent almost the next 14 years involved in firefighting until ultimately I moved out of New York and into New Jersey. All of my certifications wouldn't cross over, but that love of firefighting was a combination of a few things. It was the adrenaline, it was the science behind it. If you've never studied fire science, it is absolutely fascinating, at least to someone like me. And being in a position just to be able to help others when they're often at their worst and they can't help themselves. So, I took that experience. It started when I was pretty young, and it led me into my college years with the thought that I wanted to be an ER trauma doctor. Even maybe by way of being a military medic of some kind. So, that seemed pretty linear, right? You're a firefighter. That experience helps hone your skills. It relates to operating under pressure and making very fast but well-evaluated decisions. And one of the biggest lessons for me early on in this was that life isn't always linear. So I actually ultimately ended up being recruited to play field hockey. So I was a hockey goalie and studied by day, and then bartended and would drive down to Connecticut in college by night to play blackjack and make some cash. So by the time I was done with my 4 years, all of those well-laid pre-med ER trauma doctor plans turned into a degree in economics and a career on Wall Street. So that was kind of step one. But you take those skills that you get from the firefighting, the operating under pressure, the quick thinking skills, and those actually translated really well into trading. So I traded for a while, and now we also know that Wall Street, gaming, firefighting, they're all very male-dominated industries. So you also kind of get this human skill of learning to operate in a more male-dominated field. So trading, I shifted over to equity research, focused on retail and consumer. Embedded in that is the gaming and lodging vertical. So gaming already had a very special place in my heart after all those nights I spent, leveraging my blackjack skills as a student of game theory, et cetera, going down and making some cash in college. So all of a sudden I was back in a place of doing something that I absolutely loved as a casino and gaming specialist on Wall Street. So ultimately it all came full circle when you think about it, which is kind of an interesting route to take. You asked about the other piece of it being a woman in this industry and how to kind of, get to the level that you are and how to push through some of the challenges. And, it's not easy I think that you could probably, speak to that a little bit as well, to get to where we are. It's the challenges are still out there. We wish they weren't, but they are, they're there every day in front of our faces. So, if you look at it, the gender gap, especially in male-dominated industries and from an employment and a pay perspective in the U.S., it's a real thing. If you look at, I think it was Morningstar came out with a report maybe back a couple of years ago. It said women at the CEO level it's 17 to 1, right? Men outnumber women at the CEO level 17 to 1. And then I think Business Insider did another similar study. Women who negotiate raises and promotions are 30% more likely to be considered too aggressive or intimidating. So, it's really making sure you find the right team that is inclusive, is forward thinking in those regards. And that was important to me. So that's a big part of why I targeted Rush Street in making this transition and coming over here. It's not easy, but it's really a question of the people that you surround yourself with and the focus that you place on never giving up, never quitting. And look, I got to give a lot of credit to the team that I'm with. I really found an incredible group. We've got our CEO, Richard Schwartz, our former CEO and current CEO of Rush Street Gaming, Greg Carlin, our CFO, Kyle Sowers, my partner on the business development side, Rob Picard, all along the line, really kind of rooting for me and cheering for me along the way, helping me to make this transition over.
One of the things I love about you, Lauren, is you buck every single stereotype that is out there. And I think that's really important, being a female in firefighting on Wall Street. How tall are you?
For real?
Yeah.
Or
for our listeners who don't know you personally, tell them how tall you are.
With or without heels.
Because it's difficult enough to be a female firefighter, I would guess.
Yeah.
How tall are you?
5'1".
5'1". And there's a great case study. Obviously, I'm passionate about diversity, and there's a great case study about a height requirement to be a firefighter in our living history, right? So you were probably too young when that came about, but there was a height requirement, I think, of about 5'9", 5'10".
Okay.
Which effectively eliminated most of the female population who wanted to be. And as much as they said we're gonna hire, we're gonna recruit, they couldn't do it. And there's every industry has a case study like that. So not only have you bucked all the stereotypes of what it's like to go to college and get a real job and all those things, you've done it with probably a disadvantage than the rest of us have too, right? And I love that about you. And I think it's really important that you're a role model for people in our space to see, like, you can do it. Doesn't matter the path that you take. So thank you for sharing that. You talked a little bit about field hockey. Do you like sports?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah? I'm a lifelong sports fan, a lifelong athlete. Absolutely.
Do you have a hero? Do you have a sports hero? Let's start with that.
Later in his life, I actually got the opportunity to befriend Yogi Berra. And that sounds silly, but he lived down the street from me when I was living in New Jersey, and we ran in a couple of the same circles, so we got to enjoy some time together. And I have to say, I've always admired him. He wasn't without his fair share of adversity coming up through the sports world, and certainly took his fair share of hits along the way, but always managed to do it, in my opinion, with a level of grace and humility, and just kind of that great sense of humor that he has. And by the way, that really does transcend to his real life personality. So I think I'm going to have to go with Yogi. He's just a hell of a guy and a hell of a personality, and just really great to spend time with. Yeah. It's funny. I was sitting at the bar one night chatting with Yogi, and he's just the most down to earth, normal guy you can possibly think of. I was saying I had been playing some golf, and my knee was bothering me from all those years of being a hockey goalie. The knees aren't what they used to be. And he says, "Oh, I've got a great doctor. Let me recommend a doctor for you for your knees. I've got some bad knees too. I don't know if I was a catcher for a while." I couldn't help but start laughing my face off that Yogi was telling me this. So that's just the kind of guy that he was, and I really admire that.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that in any way. That's incredible. What about just generally, like, making career decisions? Is there someone, professionally that you look to?
I'm really, really, really fortunate in that when I kind of started making my way in my transition from Wall Street into industry, I was able to find myself the most incredible mentor a couple of years back, and he's gone on to become an equally amazing friend and an inspiration. It's a guy named Bill Macbeth. He's the CEO of the Cosmo, and he's had an incredible career, not dissimilar to mine, not devoid of twists and turns and all kinds of different situations, but he, in my opinion, has unparalleled operational prowess, a true visionary in the space, an incredible leader, and I just really admire what he's accomplished over the years. He's been an incredible advocate and teacher for me as I've navigated my career in the gaming world, but also a pillar of support. It wasn't an easy road crossing over from Wall Street, but he was the one person who never, ever, ever let me quit. He was always in my corner. He never gave up on me, and he always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. So, I hope one day to be as good of a friend, as strong as of a leader, as good of a mentor, and as respected in the industry as he is. So when I encounter any kind of different situations where maybe there's a question or maybe there's a concern or I really just don't know which way to go with it, I always look to him because I know the advice is coming from the heart. It's truthful. It's embedded in experience, and it's coming from a person who's really looking out for me. So I'm really fortunate to have that.
That's amazing. And I think as RSI continues to grow, there will be a whole host of incomers who will look to you for that. So it's really nice to hear that you have such a strong role model.
I hope to be it. I certainly do. Everyone should be so lucky.
So it's the end of the year. It's the last podcast. I am going to call you back at the end of next year, and we'll see if these come true. Predictions are everywhere, obviously. I want to hear yours. Give me 3 if you've got, or less.
I think you could see a few things start to happen. We've got more and more states coming into play, not only from an OSB perspective, but I think more will start to kind of come online from an iCasino perspective. I'm certainly not going to sit here and try and predict what those states will be, but you can't really deny the notable revenue stream that comes from online gaming and OSB, and the states need the money in their coffers right now. You've got federal COVID support starting to roll off to the states. So, I think that that'll be a big thing as more and more states start to reevaluate their budgets and their needs and reconsider legalizing OSB and importantly, iCasino, as I do think a good amount of the tax revenues do come from that side of the business in the states where it's legal.
OSB is online sports betting.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Cool. No,
I should have broken that down.
Clarifying. Okay, go on.
I think another one is, now this is kind of more, let's call it a wish list, more of a hope. But from an operational perspective, I kind of hope and think that we're going to start to see a rationalization in the promotional environment. From an investment perspective, right now investors in my investor relations side of things, they're taking a heavier focus on profitability, sustainability, operational prowess versus straight revenue generation. So now that mentality has shifted from a Wall Street perspective, I do think we're probably going to start to see that trickle down into the operations of different, into the actual day-to-day operations of different operators, right? Pulling back a little bit on maybe some of that very exuberant marketing and promotional spend that's been out there. And then from a third thing, if I were to pick something, I'd say it's probably going to see a continued emphasis on strong technology, and we're probably going to see a continued shrinking of the competitive set out there. There are a lot of players, and I think that you'll probably continue to see that rationalized.
That's funny you say that, because I think there's I sit over on the other side of the pond, and I just feel like there's room for so many more competitors. And maybe that's because the UK is a bit noisy. It just seems so wide open. So maybe some condensing will be interesting to see. Any predictions for Rush Street, or anything you want to tell us what's happening in 2022 for Rush Street?
We've built an incredible platform over the last, call it 10 years now. It's the product's fantastic. It's a great offering. The organization's fantastic. And I think really from an internal perspective, we just look forward to continuing our expansion as more markets regulate in the US and around the world. We're certainly not going to stop primarily at the US borders. We've got exposure to Latin America with Colombia, and we're just going to keep trucking. Yeah,
fab. And what about you? You're going to take a little break for Christmas and New Year's, or are you just drive it on?
But breaks and I don't really go hand in hand. I'm still on my quest for world domination, right?
Good.
Personally, it's before or after I'm done taking over the world. That's really where the question lies. Yes. Look, maybe a quick pause. I am excited to spend some time with my family over the holidays, but at this point, I'm really just taking things day by day. I'm navigating a new career and this crazy kind of post, during, mid, how is it changing COVID world we're living in. The one thing I can tell you is that I'm extremely excited to see the world starting to open a little bit back up. I do hope that, we don't make too many backward steps in that, and we can get out there more from a travel perspective. It's been great seeing you and seeing all of my other industry friends over the last couple of conferences. But one of the other things is I'm actually looking forward to is I'm escaping South Florida for a little while. I'm going to trade in my surfboard for some skis and maybe catch a little bit of powder if my knees stay.
Going out west, or are you going?
I'm going to Sea West.
Out west, cool.
Yeah.
I used to live in Montreal, and there's a great ski hill in Montreal, but it's very
nice.
cold. Have fun. Unfortunately, that's all the time that you and I have for today. It's been a real pleasure, Lauren. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your predictions, your amazing career. And I hope everyone else enjoys getting a chance to get more onto the personal side of your career. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the time, Kelly, as always. And on top of that, I really appreciate everything that you've done for women in the industry and all of the efforts that you've made along the way. So thank you for that.
This has been the final episode of SBC Leaders Podcast for 2021. I'm Kelly Kehn, Global Relationship Director for SBC. You can subscribe to this series on any of your podcast platforms, or you can watch direct on gamblingtv.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2022 for Series 2.